Hello, my name is John, and this is my final multimedia assignment for our class. That's me with the baseball hat. Opportunity knocks. So, for this presentation, I want to talk about the immediate past, the immediate present, and my immediate future, because the things we've learned in this class and other classes I've had are going to drastically shift how I teach next year. Throughout this presentation, I have some quotes, which I will probably not be reading to you, but they seem to fit the vibe I'm going for as I move through this presentation. So to begin, I want to talk about the past. And so I'm going to start with a little bit about a personal history, my understanding of patriotism and where it comes from. And then I'm going to go into a few other things here, but I want to start with these two men here. So these are my two grandfathers. Now, don't mind the alcohol and cigarettes, but this is the only photograph I have of these two men, and they both served in World War II. They both came home with very different attitudes towards the war. The gentleman on the left never spoke about the war until his deathbed. And the gentleman on the right, who I'm named after, he talked about it every single day of his life. He stormed the beach in Normandy at 17 years old and survived. So his take on history, on patriotism, is very, very strong and very different than the other grandfather who kept it all buttoned up. So building on this, though, I looked up to these two men. They were my idols as children, and I kind of want to follow in their footsteps. So I did something silly. And I joined the U.S. Army, and I was a radioman. This was before the days of cell phones, so this is actually the only photograph I have of myself in uniform, and you can't even see my face. But I want to talk about my teaching experiences and how this relates to the curriculum. So I went back to school after the Army. I went back to school and I graduated from the University of Central Florida. And in the 2017-18 school year, I was offered a job here in Georgia in Forsyth County at a private institution. When I started, I was teaching 7th grade early U.S. history, and I was given a set of standards that were incomplete. They were like printed, photocopied, stapled, but they weren't even, I didn't have everything. And the principal basically said, go figure it out, which was pretty incredible because I really got to learn from my mistakes. Let's talk about my critical event. In the 21-22 school year, I had 6th graders, and I was talking economics, economic systems, and the concept of slavery came up. Now, I only had one black child in my class at this time, and she really had a very terrible reaction. Her hands went up to her ears. She started screaming, I don't want to talk about this. And of course, right, like that really changed the way I see presenting the material, which said, okay, I need to learn more. And this is why I chose this program at UGA. I've taken the middle grade education program, and already has changed the way that I'm teaching. So go dogs. This brings me to my immediate present. So last year we have a new principal. She's awesome. She covers K through 8. Also over the course of last year, they had a new social studies chair position that was created. I was not interested in that position, but my new principal suggested I apply. I did. I did not get the job. Thank goodness, because there's no way I'd be able to handle that. And, my master's degree. We have a whole new social studies curriculum taking place next year, and which is my opportunity. I get to write an entire new class. On top of that, for the first time, I'm getting a textbook. Now, the textbook definitely has a perspective. And this is going to be great in a way because I could take this information we've learned and show the kids. Here's the perspective that this book is trying to show you what other perspectives are out there. I'm very excited. That's a picture of my school, and that is my classroom. I've been there for this. I'm going into my 8th year. So, what's the future going to look like? So, my curriculum. So, I'm going to use the Georgia Standards of Excellence and I'm going to use the C3. And I really enjoyed reading through the Ontario curriculum, which I thought of the three left a lot more openness, I guess is the word, for the teacher's interpretation of how you're going to teach certain things. I could be wrong, but I really enjoyed that. So, I'm going to be teaching 7th grade, which is going to be early US, and 8th grade late US this coming year. My plan is to incorporate the explicit and the implicit curriculum, but I'm going to explain both, especially with the textbook that I'll be using. I'm pretty excited about it, though. Transmission or transformation. So one of the things that we read from Stanley, his paper, I really found myself agreeing with some of the things that were said by John Dewey, that the method of education should be the focus and not the social outcome. And I think this is true. And if we are starting to trying to force the social outcome, that's our perspective, our interpretation of what's happening in the world at this time. And you're not necessarily building the skills up for the students to figure out in their time in the future to have those skills. So I thought that was very interesting. It was one of my favorite readings of the course. So inquiry-based education. With all this information we've learned in this curriculum class, I'm hoping to, when I'm building my curriculum for the next year, I want to lean in on my students' lived experiences. Try to take their current knowledge and apply it to new material. And I really like the idea of inquiry-based learning. And I think looking at the standards, especially the Ontario ones, that really opens up more for the inquiry-based process. Now, I did try it this past year, at the very end of the school year, and I had mixed results with this. But I want to show you something that a 6th grade girl gave me. So to try this lesson, I gave a very brief introduction to World War I. And we talked about the main causes and what the battles were like and trench warfare. But then I said, okay, I want you to show me what is interesting to you, go learn something, and then present it in any way you wish. And so this young lady hands me a painting that she created. And I took the painting and I said, this is, wonderful. Explain to me how this relates to World War I. And she said, Mr. Barnett, it's the poppy. And I used these dark colors to show the gloom of the battle. But the poppy represents World War I. And then she went into all the reasons why the poppy became the symbol of World War I and how when you dug the trenches up, and the fresh soil, and the men were coming over the top of the trenches and are being shot, and their blood was soaking into the soil, make it ideal for this flower to grow. And that was amazing, and I felt like I earned my pay that day. But we always have to look at their perspectives. This young girl who did this was actually an immigrant from the Philippines, and I just couldn't have been happier. And I'm not sure what her experiences were like in the Philippines, but what she brings to the class every day is just electrifying. She's amazing. So one of the things I have here, I have these couple images of the statues and throughout different times in history, always positioned to tell a particular story from a particular time, place, and perspective, coming from Seagal. This is something that I think is a great way to teach, to show the interpretations, especially over time. So, what else do I have coming up next year? Well, something new. This young lady is turning 13. This is my daughter, and she's going to be in my classroom for the first time. So, on top of trying to learn the perspectives and the histories of all my students, I have another child who I know exactly their perspective. Maybe not perspective, but I know their history. And I want to make sure that she gets the best education as possible. And it's kind of nerve wracking in a way. But, is this going to make me a better educator? Or is it going to be a detriment to my profession? And I don't know. It's to be seen. But I'm going to end on this quote from Beck.